And good evening. Tonight, fears of a nuclear catastrophe are growing greater by the minute in Ukraine. The country's largest power plant, the third in the world, in the hands of an unpredictable and volatile Vladimir Putin, whose offensive in other parts of the country has stalled. Employees who work at this nuclear plant in Zaporizhia fleeing in recent days, fearful of an impending disaster. And we want to show you this cell phone video. It shows military vehicles marked with Russian symbols inside of the plant, which was seized by the Russian military in early March. Ukraine warning Russia could soon take the plant offline, a move that could trigger a toxic nuclear accident. Putin today signaling he'd be willing to allow inspectors inside of the plant next month. But many, including Ukrainian President Zelensky, warning that would be far too late. In a sign of how dire the situation is, officials in Ukraine conducting nuclear disaster response drills just miles from the plant, preparing for the worst-case scenario. NBC's Megan Fitzgerald is on the ground in Ukraine and leads us off tonight.
Tonight, fears of a nuclear catastrophe at Europe's largest nuclear plant in Zaporizhia, Ukraine, are intensifying.
The United States remains deeply concerned.
Russia has been occupying the facility in Ukraine's east since the start of the war. Now, Ukraine is warning that Russia may take the plant off the electrical grid, a precarious move that energy experts say raises the risk of a nuclear accident, sending radioactive material across Europe.
And now there they have some war machines, and they have explosive materials, and they have shelves, and it's a madness, absolute madness.
The power company that manages the plant says the Russians are already moving to shut it down, which would deny the country a key energy source, saying the Russian military is looking for fuel to power generators to keep the reactors cool.
The most dangerous status of reactor is when they're moving from the operations to cold mode.
This all comes as the UN Secretary General is in Ukraine meeting with President Zelensky.
Any potential damage to Zaporizhia is suicide.
The UN chief calling on international inspectors to go inside the plant immediately. Echoed in a call today by the president of France to Vladimir Putin, who said he's open to inspectors. But earlier today, a Russian official said the visit may not happen until September. President Zelensky has repeatedly warned that may be too late. Meanwhile, there are new signs that Ukraine is on the offensive. Strikes hit Russian-controlled Crimea twice in a week, taking out military jets and destroying ammunition depots. A Ukrainian government official confirmed to NBC News that pro-Ukrainian guerrilla fighters have been involved with the attacks.
All right, Megan Fitzgerald joins us now live from Kyiv. Megan, today the White House announced a new $775 million aid package for Ukraine. Give us some details of where that money's going to go.
Well, Tom, we're told by the Pentagon that that new package will include more ammunition for rocket systems, artillery, along with missiles, and for the first time, long-endurance, low-flying drones. Tom?
Megan Fitzgerald reporting for us tonight from Ukraine. Megan, we thank you for that. With the nuclear threat looming large over Europe, we are grateful to be joined again on Top Story by Kira Rudik. She's a member of the Ukrainian parliament and the leader of the Golos political party. And a reminder, when we first met Kira back in Ukraine, she was learning how to use an AK-47 to defend her country. So that tells you just a little bit about her bravery. Kira, I want to start with what you put out on Twitter. Let's take a look right now. This is what you tweeted. Russia threatens to stop Europe's largest Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Occupiers are planning to carry out a provocation there. This is a real nuclear blackmail. Putin resorts to the craziest methods. What do you think Putin's endgame is here?
Well, first of all, his endgame is either to threaten everyone and make sure that our allies push us to negotiate with Putin for everybody's sake, or to at least cut off 10 to 15% of electrical energy that we are receiving from the Zaporizhia nuclear plant and make it extremely hard for Ukraine to survive through this winter.
Kira, talk to me. Kira, yeah, if you could explain that to our viewers here. It's the largest nuclear power plant in all of Europe, as we've reported. If that goes off, what does it mean for the people of Ukraine?
So that means that we will have 10 to 15% less energy that we provide ourselves, and we will have to buy it. And if we will have to buy it, we will need more and more money. And we are right now $5 billion a month short. $5 billion every month we are asking from our allies, from our supporters, including United States, including United Kingdom, European countries. So we will have to get more money to buy energy just to survive on a very, very basic level. And Putin is making it harder for us.
So how do you defend against this, right? Because you don't want to have battles and or combat near the nuclear site.
You know, before Putin, it was kind of unspoken mean of the war that nobody is fighting near the nuclear plants. We all remember Chernobyl and the tragedy that happened there. So nobody could even think that Putin will be literally playing with fire. So what we need right now is to have international community and UN representation there at the station to ensure that this is a neutral zone. Because it's so absolutely insane that someone would be playing there with the rockets, and we will be one mistake away from having like another huge nuclear tragedy. This is nuclear blackmail.
The world praying that there's some kind of resolution that can be figured out there, even though we know it's highly unlikely. As Megan mentioned in the report just before you came on the show, the Biden administration announced another $775 million in aid today. What else do you need from the U.S. and other allies at this moment?
We need to get more and more weapons. We are extremely thankful for everything that we are receiving, but every single victory of Ukrainian army that you see right now, that you hear about right now, is because we are getting more and more weapons in. If we are facing Russian soldiers not being empty-handed, we are winning. And this is why we need to continue the weapon supply to go on, and we need to just make sure that it wouldn't stop and it wouldn't go down, but will be continuously increased. We also need money. As I told you, $5 billion every month. Just we need to find it just to survive. And this is something that our allies are helping with.
Kira Rudik, a member of Ukraine's parliament. Kira, we thank you for your time, and please stay safe there. Next, back here at home in the severe storms wreaking havoc across the country. Take a look. In Pasadena, Texas, this 18-wheeler flipping over the side of a highway, colliding with another truck. You see it right there. You see them before. The driver escaping, though, the vehicle before it toppled over, which is pretty incredible. And in South Carolina, this was quite the scene. An alligator shocking residents swimming through completely flooded yards and roads. For more on the ongoing flooding threat, NBC meteorologist Bill Cairns joins us now. Bill, I know you're also tracking some breaking news on tropical storm warnings in South Texas.
Yeah, this popped up really quickly, Tom. This is that time of year. We're August, we're September. This is the peak of the hurricane season. It doesn't take much for something to flare up, and this has happened in about the last 24 hours. This big white blob here you see in the southern Gulf of Mexico is starting to turn into a tropical depression. We think that should happen later tonight, and then tomorrow it should have just enough time to become Tropical Storm Danielle. So where is this heading? Here's the latest from the Hurricane Center. They're calling this a potential tropical cyclone. It's not quite yet an official depression. It's going to get there later on tonight. They believe it's over warm water. It's in favorable conditions. And as long as it doesn't make landfall earlier than anticipated, it should become a tropical storm. So we actually have a forecast cone and path for this. And it does include South Texas. And that's why the Brownsville, Harlingen area and South Padre Island is under a tropical storm warning. The odds of this becoming a hurricane are fairly low. We think you're going to get some gusty winds. We don't think the storm surge is going to be a big issue because it's not going to be a strong enough storm for that. But it could produce some locally heavy rain. So to keep that in mind, conditions going downhill in South Texas come Saturday evening. Now for the flood threat. We've got flash flood warnings outside of Phoenix and Tucson once again. This is a broken record day after day, about 9 million people included in this. But here's what's going to change. This tropical moisture is on the move. It's heading for Texas. At the same exact time that tropical storm is going to be heading for Texas, we're going to have a squeeze play event where we're just going to wring out a lot of moisture. So tomorrow, moderate flash flood risk to Tucson to El Paso. And then I think this is probably going to get upgraded with the latest information. But on Sunday, that heavy rain moves from Lubbock to Dallas. And Tom, it's pretty incredible. All that rain and all the drought that we've been talking about is going to collide right in the middle of where we've had some of the worst drought conditions in the country. We're expecting 7 to 10 inches of rain around Dallas in the next 5 to 7 days.
All right, it's going to be a busy week ahead. Bill, we appreciate that. We want to stay with weather now, though. We want to go to Europe, where a summer of extreme heat and severe weather is showing no signs of letting up. We've told you a little bit about it here on Top Story, some of it even turning deadly. The wildfires, droughts, and punishing rainstorms sweeping across several countries. NBC's Matt Bradley has the latest.
Tonight, a week of weather hell in Europe. Wildfires continue to burn across the Mediterranean region, while the north faces punishing storms, which have already claimed several lives. No end in sight for the multiple blazes in regions not usually known for fire-prone conditions.
What's he doing?
In Spain, a frantic scene as a high-speed train drives right into the path of a brush fire, causing passengers to flee. 11 people were injured and 4 people suffered serious burns as they tried to escape the flames. In a nearby town, firefighters working desperately to stop that same fire from consuming part of the village. They were successful, but 2 firefighters were injured. Fires in the region have forced the evacuation of at least 11 towns. Authorities say they've made progress stabilizing the fires, but that a sudden change in the weather could cause more problems.
Hay una noticia en contra que es que sobre el mediodía va a rolar el viento, va a cambiar la dirección del viento y esa zona que está tranquila se nos puede convertir en uno de los frentes.
To the west in Portugal, wildfires unleashing massive plumes of smoke, which have drifted 250 miles to blanket Madrid in Spain with heavy smog.
Increíble cómo la naturaleza puede llegar a manifestarse en tantas partes, ¿no?
Even islands in the center of the Mediterranean Sea facing the flames. Early this morning, Sicily dotted with fires fueled by high temperatures up to 104 degrees Fahrenheit.
As temperatures warm globally by just a couple degrees, it's easier for multiple areas to be getting heat waves, for example, at the same time, or droughts or fires.
Meanwhile, in other parts of Europe, the opposite problem, with violent storms sweeping across the Alps. Tragedy in Austria where 2 little girls were killed by trees that were blown over and 3 women killed by a lightning strike. 13 people in total were injured in that storm, according to officials. Plus, Venice hit with strong winds and rain. And in Tuscany, 2 people were killed from falling trees, while rainstorms battered beach towns on the French island of Corsica, killing 5 people.
Is this the new normal for Europe? Probably this is a really exceptional year. Let's hope so. But it's giving us a hint of things that could become very common in the future.
The increasing severity of the weather is becoming undeniable in Europe. Throughout the summer, many parts of the continent suffered through their hottest temperatures on record, regularly rising above 100 degrees Fahrenheit and worsened by an alarming drought. This week, parts of France's Loire River almost dried up. One resident of the area expressing anxiety about the ever more apparent effects of climate change.
C'est-à-dire, je m'inquiète pour la terre, je m'inquiète. C'est pas seulement pour ici que je m'inquiète. C'est.
Matt Bradley, NBC News, London.
All right, we turn now to the record-breaking number of crossings at the southern border. U.S. Customs and Border Protection say encounters have now surpassed 2 million this fiscal year alone. A heated issue ahead of the midterm elections and one of the biggest challenges for the Biden administration as Republicans become increasingly critical of the hundreds of thousands of migrants entering the country. Tonight, we'll show you the families making the dangerous journey north and the children, some not even old enough to walk. Telemundo's Valeria Leon has been following that story for us.
Among the crowds of migrants making their way to the U.S., children. Some not old enough to walk, but have already traveled hundreds of miles. Little boys and girls, many of whom were born along the long journey north, like little 3-year-old Valentina, who's traveling with her Venezuelan parents, but was born in Colombia.
Por tener una niña pequeña, o sea, México nos da como la oportunidad de tener los permisos más fáciles.
This family soon adding adding to what has become a record-breaking year of border crossings. In this fiscal year alone, Customs and Border Patrol have encountered more than 2 million migrants, breaking the record previously set last year. Most of those encounters, single men and family units. And while pandemic-era policies like Title 42 are still limiting migrants' ability to claim asylum, it hasn't deterred families from continuing their journey north.
No conoció lo terrible que es vivir en tu país de origen, que es Venezuela, con la dictadura que tenemos.
Now, shelters like this in the southern state of Oaxaca say every day about 1,000 migrants arrive, entire families often with little ones in hand.
Nosotros duramos 7 años en Ecuador y nació el niño. Y de ahí nos vinimos para acá.
Waiting for government permits that will allow them to continue their way across Mexico in hopes of one day reaching a new home that will grant them new opportunities. Valeria León, NBC News.
Okay, we thank Valeria for that story. Next up, back here in California, 2 small planes colliding in a horrifying crash, leaving no survivors. Security cam video capturing the moments just after the accident, and audio from the cockpit where you can hear the pilots just before the disaster. Here's Jake Ward.
Tonight, a rare accident in midair. 2 small planes in a deadly collision.
Everybody, please be advised on airport Watsonville, we have a couple of accidents.
Officials announced there were no survivors. 3 on board both planes were killed as they attempted to land in a Northern California airport.
All of a sudden, I saw in the blink of an eye another plane there, and they hit each other, and it was almost as if the faster plane had gone right through the smaller plane.
Security video showing the explosion right after impact. The planes crashed shortly before 3 p.m. Pacific yesterday, according to the city of Watsonville.
We just heard like a big crash, and it was these 2 planes. But we looked up and we saw the plane, like I think it was a jet, it was smoking.
Air traffic controller audio revealed the pilots of the twin-engine Cessna and the second plane, a single-engine Cessna, were talking to one another just before the accident.
Looking for traffic on left base.
Yeah, I see you. You're behind me. I'm gonna go around then, because you're coming at me pretty quick, man.
An investigation is now underway by the FAA and NTSB.
I've been here since July of 2011. We have never had a collision of this nature.
While these accidents are infrequent, they do happen. 3 plane collisions happened last year, and this collision will be the 3rd one this year, according to the NTSB. Greg Fife, a former NTSB investigator, says human error is likely to blame.
It really is dependent on the pilot and their skills, abilities, and knowledge to employ not only the use of that technology, but also the use of really their eyes, because that's what it's all about, is see and avoid.
The city-owned airport does not have an air traffic control tower to direct planes, which is normal for an airport this size.
The airspace around Watsonville at this particular time, nor the volume of traffic, would support the cost of bringing a control tower to the field.
Investigators now left to solve the mystery of this deadly collision. Luckily, no one on the ground was injured. Jake Ward, NBC News, San Francisco.
After 2 weeks, authorities haven't found a trace. Now her family is turning to volunteer divers who've spotted clues others have missed in the past. Here's Aaron McLaughlin.
It's been 14 days since Kylie Rodney went missing following a late-night party at a campground in Truckee, California.
I just want her to come back and be okay.
Her disappearance triggering a massive search. Authorities scouring the surrounding area for any sign of the 16-year-old or her car, and releasing surveillance images of Kylie in the hours before her disappearance. And yet, authorities appear no closer to finding her, this week announcing they're scaling back the search.
We've had over 9,000 man-hours into searching, which is pretty astronomical. Our biggest problem is where do we go and how do we keep sustaining this?
Desperate for answers, Kylie's extended family reached out to a group of volunteer scuba diving sleuths to help.
All of the agents, sheriffs, and detectives that I've spoken with are all completely baffled.
Earlier this year, NBC exclusively profiled the group Adventures with Purpose when they helped a family find their missing mom.
It's a Kia.
Specializing in cold cases of people and their vehicles gone missing underwater, on Saturday, they'll start working with local authorities to search for Kylie.
Almost everyone that we find is in areas that other agencies have already searched.
What is it about your technology that sets you apart?
It's the ability to manipulate it the way we do.
Tonight, volunteer sleuths doing what they can to keep this case from going cold. Aaron McLaughlin, NBC News.
All right, coming up next, the $20 million settlement involving Brad Pitt. Why the actor and his charity were sued by victims of Hurricane Katrina after building new homes for people displaced by the storm. And the flash mob crime, the out-of-control scene at a Los Angeles 7-Eleven, the shocking images when we come back. All right, we are back now with Top Stories Newsfeed. We begin with sentencing of the most notorious ISIS terrorist to stand trial in the U.S. A federal judge in Virginia sentencing El Shafi El Sheikh to life in prison for his role in the kidnapping and brutal execution of 4 American hostages. The British national, one of the 4 ISIS Beatles, known for their accents and especially cruel torture tactics. The family of journalist James Foley, one of the Americans killed, calling the sentence a bit of justice. Next to a wild scene in Los Angeles, take a look at this. The LAPD releasing surveillance video of what it calls a flash mob of looters. The group taking over a 7-Eleven, stealing snacks, cigarettes, lottery tickets, some of them jumping over the counter and throwing merchandise at employees, all of them getting away before cops showed up. Police now asking for the public's help to track down those suspects. A driver in Miami lucky to be alive after a scary train collision. Video posted to social media showing a train obliterating the vehicle, which was stuck at an intersection in North Miami. Witnesses say the driver of the car was able to get out moments before the crash. No one was hurt. Okay, and Brad Pitt and his Make It Right Foundation have reached a $20 million settlement with Hurricane Katrina victims over faulty homes they built 17 years ago. More than 100 homeowners now eligible to receive $25,000 for previous repairs made to their houses. The owners reporting mold, leak, and rot in their homes purchased after the devastating storm. Pitt was sued in 2018 for defective design, breach of contract, and even fraud. Now to an NBC exclusive. After a summer of airline meltdowns, the Transportation Department is warning airlines to improve their customer service policies, or the government will order changes to compensate passengers for delays or cancellations. Here's Tom Costello.
After receiving billions in taxpayer support during the pandemic, the nation's airlines are tonight under intense pressure. Improve their customer service, or the government could soon impose tough new passenger rights. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg.
So now you're kind of laying down the law for the airlines. They can either pony up on their own, or you're going to enforce this for them.
That's right. I'm giving them an opportunity right now. We can do more rulemakings and even more enforcement.
In a letter to airline CEOs, Buttigieg writes, the level of disruption Americans have experienced this summer is unacceptable. Since Memorial Day weekend, 23% of U.S. flights delayed an average of 52 minutes. 2.2% of flights canceled, most in June. Contributing factors, weather and air traffic control problems. But the FAA insists airlines get most of the blame for booking passengers on flights they didn't have the pilots for. Now the DOT wants airlines to provide refunds if a domestic flight is changed or delayed more than 3 hours, hotel accommodations for overnight delays. And with confusing airline rules on refunds and voucher policies, the DOT will roll out a new website Labor Day weekend, posting each airline's policies.
We want to make sure very clearly spelled out so that passengers know what they're getting when they buy a ticket.
The airline industry insists carriers strive to provide the highest level of customer service and look forward to working with the DOT to continue providing transparency for the traveling public. With Labor Day, Thanksgiving, and Christmas travel ahead, mounting pressure to avoid a summer repeat.
All right, Tom Costello joins us now from Washington. Tom, I want to pick up where you just left off there, the holidays and what's around the corner. What are your sources, and really what's your gut telling you about the holidays, what they will look like? I have to be honest, I flew a lot this summer for both work and vacation. And to be fair, at least in my experience flying multiple airlines, I noticed things seem to have improved at least a little bit. What can we expect heading into the holidays?
No, they have, and I've said this on the air many times, since July 1st, when the airlines dramatically trimmed their schedules to align with their staffing capabilities, their number of pilots, things definitely improved. You've heard the DOT secretary say the same thing. We are right now running at about 2.3% cancellation rate. That's a little higher than normal, but the concern is, okay, what happens if we go now into the fall and the winter and we go into these heavy travel periods? Might we get back into a problem like we saw in May and June? I don't think it's going to be as bad as May or June. They're adding more staff. They're trimming the schedules. But nonetheless, some of these structural problems still exist within the airlines.
Tom, but while I have you, I do want to ask you one thing I did notice. I mean, booking this travel, the prices in the beginning of summer were just out of control. Yep. Should flyers expect that going into the holidays?
So Labor Day tickets up 20% from just a few weeks ago. After Labor Day, this is the shoulder season. September, October are slow. This is why all the retirees travel in September and October. Rates are cheaper, but you might want to book your flight right now if you want to go for Thanksgiving or Christmas.
All right, Tom Costello for us. Tom, we thank you for those tips. You may have seen headlines today about a warning from Apple to update your devices. Well, the tech giant saying it fixed a weakness in its operating system that may have had allowed hackers to get into your phone and control it through, quote, maliciously crafted web content. So how concerned should you be? CNBC technology correspondent Steve Kovac joins us now. So, Steve, there's a lot of chatter about this online. I know a lot of people are hyping this one up. It is pretty confusing, and the headlines are kind of scary. Can you walk our viewers through what exactly is going on?
Yeah, sure thing. So this is actually pretty standard for Apple and basically every other smartphone maker to issue software updates with security patches for little holes or bugs that they find in their code. You see this all the time. It's not just on the iOS level. Even your apps, like your Facebook app, might update regularly to fix any kind of bug fixes. And that's what we're seeing here. This isn't a major zero-day, everyone panic nightmare scenario. In fact, if you look, these updates are issued several times a year. And just in the last summer alone, there have been at least a dozen or so just this summer. So this is a very common thing. Apple is constantly watching for vulnerabilities across its devices, and other manufacturers do the same. And as soon as they have a fix for it, they push it out.
I think people, the idea of someone controlling your iPhone, though, through some type of hacking scares people. How did this hack work?
Yeah, so in this case, it's through the web browser. So, for example, if you go to a kind of shady site, maybe, it could inject some code onto your phone that could take over. The chances of a normal person doing that or falling for it are pretty low, but there are some things you can do to protect yourself for that. And for example, you can keep your phone up to date, and also just don't click on any sketchy links someone sends you.
Yeah, when you say sketchy websites, is it more of a phishing scam? Like you'd actually have to click on a link, or are there web pages that you should avoid? Obviously, web pages you'd avoid anyway, but it's not happening if you're logging on to Amazon.com or NewYorkTimes.com, something like that.
Exactly, or NBC.com. Right. We're totally clean there. But it's usually like, you've probably gotten text messages like this before. You say, oh, your Amazon package is delivered, and you get a link with a string of letters and numbers. Those are the kind of links you don't want to click on. You don't know where it's taking you. You don't know what kind of information it's gathering. Make sure if you get an email or a text message, it's coming from someone either you know, or double check that sender that it's an official source, like a big company that you might actually trust, and not some kind of phishing scam. That's a good way to protect yourself, on top of just keeping your phone up to date, which you can do automatically in settings. It will automatically patch these software bugs.
So the email I just got from Steve Kovac at gmail.com that saying I won the lottery, don't click on that link.
Whatever you do, do not click on that link, and keep your phone up to date, and you'll be just fine.
All right, Steve Kovac from CNBC. Love having you on, man. We thank you. When we come back, an update on those violent crackdowns in Nicaragua we've been covering. The church official just arrested at his home. International groups calling on the Pope to get involved. Stay with us. All right, we are back now with Top Stories Global Watch and an update on a story we brought you last night, the violent crackdown on Catholics in Nicaragua. And tonight, the arrest of a highly influential church official. Nicaraguan authorities storming the home of Catholic Bishop Rolando Alvarez in Matagalpa. Alvarez has spoken out against Nicaragua's President Daniel Ortega. It is still unclear what charges he's facing. And the shocking admission from the Mexican government today about a years-old crime. Mexican authorities saying the 2014 disappearance of 43 students in Iguala was a, quote, state crime. The country's human rights chief outlining the government's involvement in the cover-up and confirming it's likely all the students are dead. And the World Rally Championship race car driver surviving a terrifying crash in Belgium. New video showing the leader in this race here flipping his car several times before coming to a stop. He and his co-pilot climbing out of the wreck through the front windshield. Neither of the drivers were hurt in the crash. That's good news. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.